Hello and welcome to the strangest gig I've ever played. True tales from the studio and the stage. I'm your host, Chris J. Norwood. This is the podcast where we hear the true tales of all those strange, weird, wild, wacky, terrible, and or amazing gigs we have to play in order to make it as freelance and gigging musicians. On the podcast with us this week is Jeff Ryan, drummer extraordinaire. Another drummer. Let's get to it. Welcome back. I know it's been a minute. You know, life happens. Things get in the way, the holidays and all that good stuff. But we're back with episode number 5 of the podcast. This week we feature my good friend, Jeff Ryan. Jeff works for State Fair Records, among the many other things that he does. He helped me out a lot with my most recent album, I Am Not Cool. And here's a shameless plug. My album, I Am Not Cool, came out on August 20th of last year. Hope you'll check it out. If you'd like to do that, you can go to chrisjnorwood.com. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk to one Jeff Ryan. He's also a drummer and has had the good pleasure of getting to play with some pretty incredible artists like St. Vincent, The War on Drugs, Sarah Jaffe, and many more. He's also a writer for Modern Drummer magazine. Jeff has some pretty funny stories that he will share later in the podcast, so let's get to it. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Let's just jump right in. Tell me about your current gig. What you're doing now. I mean, obviously I know, but for the radio listeners out there.
So what I do, a number of things. I wear a few hats. So as far as drumming wise, what I do in my musical world is I'm playing drums for a band called Motorcade. I play drums for Doug Burr, Jackson Scribner, Pleasant Grove on occasion when we're not on hiatus.
Yeah.
And really just kind of, whoever kind of calls and the day y'all called me to put a bass drum on that Raglan Road.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a studio, for higher stuff. And then for jobs, I obviously work for State Fair Records, in sales and distribution, event management, artist management, all that fun stuff. So just a number of things, and it's super fun to do all of them. At the end of the day, I'm like, okay, what's on for tomorrow?
You got to tally up all the things. Yeah, every musician I talk to is always, so far, everybody I've interviewed been like, well, I don't just do one thing. And that's kind of the way that, us mid-level music industry people are these days. You have to do a little bit of a lot.
You have to do a little bit of a lot, man. Just anything that really comes down the pike. I mean, we did that. I don't know if you knew or not, but we did that Cowboys private party thing.
I saw that, yeah.
It was just a total money gig, but I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah, sure. It looked like a blast.
Oh my gosh. It was awesome. But yes, that's it. I mean, drums have been, my thing. I'll be, if you can believe it, Chris, which, obviously you'll say no way, but, to flatter me. But, I turned the big 5-0 in a couple months.
Don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
It is truth. I will be the big 5-0 in early March, but I see no signs of stopping this madness of daily grind of what I do. Just keep going,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so talk about then, if you want, talk about kind of how you got started drumming, and then some of those early bands you were in, because you've got to drum with some pretty awesome people over the years.
Yeah, I got real lucky. Honestly, not to be self-deprecating, but that is honestly, I feel like, wow, I really played with them. Huh? That's really wild. So. Well, in college, you had your college bands. I started playing drums really, just to kind of backtrack even further. I'm going to be the big 5-0, this coming March, but I started playing drums when I was 6.
Early, yeah.
Yeah, super early, and I never had lessons until really I went to to North Texas, and I didn't really have lessons. I got a few like private lessons from some jazz students there, and I got some like Latin chops and some jazz chops, and I was like, okay, with whatever dinosaur drumming I was doing before, if I kind of
Yeah.
combine those two things, or these three things, dinosaur drumming with a little bit of jazz knowledge and independence and Latin, I think I can play a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so then, I think one of the first kind of cool things I started playing with was in the band Pleasant Grove, and that was, it was a local band, but because we had international interest, because we were signed to a label in Germany called Glitter House, and I was in the band for like not even a year, and we went and toured Europe for 3 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and that was my first time. That was my first time to really like tour, and I toured for the first time. Really, I was touring in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
So yeah, your first big tour is overseas. That's a
Yeah,
trip.
it was a total trip. And then we came back, and then the next leg of a tour we did with like a 5-day run with Slobberbone. And I'm like, this is not like touring in Switzerland. Why am I sleeping on someone's floor? We had our own hotel rooms over there. What's going on?
A little bit different, yeah.
A bit different.
And
So,
how old were you at the time?
I think I was in my late 20s.
Okay, yeah.
From college, it took me a good, maybe 5-6 years to kind of make my way around in Dallas and kind of get to know some folks, and from Pleasant Grove, I went to Baptist Generals, who were a sub pop band, and I did a bunch of touring with them, which I think some of the stories, or a story I can relate later about weirdness, will be with them. But really from then, I started getting just the Cliff Notes version, but I started getting calls because of my two really close friends were Stuart Sykes, winning and nominated producer, engineer, for the White Stripes, Loretta Lynn, and the Walkmen, and everybody else.
Yeah.
Sparkle Horse. I mean, he's like he was the go-to. He still is the go-to guy. And John Congleton, like they shared a studio in Oak Cliff.
Do they still have that studio?
No, well, it is still there, and I think John owns it, but he rents it out to Alex Bohr.
Okay.
And Alex was in that band This Will Destroy You, and now he's just mainly is an engineer and a drummer also.
Gotcha.
But at the time, and this is like in the late, this is now fast forward to like the late 2000s.
Yeah.
Like the 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Right.
And they were at the heyday of there. I mean, everybody was going through that studio, man. I mean, the Walkmen, you name it. I mean, San Vincent, the War on Drugs. I mean, everybody was flowing through there. And I would just happen to, because I was such good friends with them and I'd done so many sessions with them before with other bands, they knew that I could, play a bit. And, I mean, Congleton texted me one day and he goes, "Hey, man, you want to come play some drums with St. Vincent?" And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be there. But this is at the time.
Did he call her St. Vincent or did he say Annie Clark?
He did say St. Vincent.
Okay.
And at the time, though, I only really kind of barely knew about her from Pitchfork, and I knew she was kind of a local gal, but had moved to New York. And long story short, I mean, this was just after her first album, "Marry Me," had come out, and she was still like an indie darling.
Right.
She wasn't of a status she is now.
Right.
But she was super sweet, and I did a couple songs for the Actor record. I played on the lead track, Actor, and another track. I forgot the name of it. And then then I played the War on Drugs. Just like soon after that too, at Elmwood. I think I only played on one song on the album, the Slave Ambient album.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was the song "I Was There" or "You Were There" or "We Were There."
Yeah, something like that.
It's like the third track on that album. And I played on that, and it was so funny because as I was tracking it, it doesn't, the War on Drugs, like it doesn't really change a lot, and this is the early stuff. Like it's pretty straight and just goes for it,
Yeah.
I remember I was tracking the song. I remember looking over at John in the control room, and Adam Grinduciel, at the
Yeah.
time he and I were playing, we tracked it together, and he had his head down, his long hairs all over his face, and you know, and I look at John, and he looks at me like I have no idea. Like the song is like nothing was changing. I was playing the exact same pattern for like 8 minutes. I'm like, is this over? Are we? What's happening?
It's just still rolling.
Yeah, are we still rolling? I mean, I haven't changed. I think I'm still with the click. I mean, I don't know what's going on. But so those were two pretty big, highlights. And then I've just gone on to play with whoever, Doug Burr, Sarah Jaffe. Play with a bazillion shows and 2 or 3 records, I think, with her. Um, you know, um, Daniel Johnston, I got to sit in with
Oh, that's great.
live, which
Yeah.
totally falls into that weird show thing.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
oh my
With Daniel
god, yeah,
Johnson.
I'll tell you about that. Um,
And then you
and
do a
so
little writing also for Modern Drummer, right?
right, yeah. So I got, and a lot of these things I just kind of like just took a chance and just that literally, Chris, I emailed the editor one day
Oh,
and
fun.
said, hey, yeah, I just emailed him and I said, hey, I'm this and I've played with these guys and I know these guys and I was kind of being a bit brash about it, I guess. I was like,
Yeah.
I see a gap in your magazine. Because they were covering like all the jazzers and all like the heavy metalers
Yeah.
and I was like, there's a lot of amazing drummers that are like you said, kind of like the mid level, like they're playing to
Yeah.
like 400 or 500 people a night on the road, and they're not super famous, but these are people
But
that
they're killer. Yeah.
they're killer players, and I think everybody should know about them.
Yeah.
So I wrote a few articles, for them, and I'm actually working on one now. Um, that I'll just tell you about.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's these are not unknown players. It's kind of freaked me out because I've been emailing back and forth with them. But there is an article coming out on their podcast. It's about Lowell Tolhurst, who was the original drummer for The Cure,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Budgie from Susie and the Banshees.
Oh, right on.
So I got an email from Budgie one day, and I was like, "Okay, how can I frame that?"
You printed it out and
Yeah.
you should
So
mail
that's
it to him
something
and see if he'll sign it.
yeah, totally. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. I've got a few of the little things that they kind of modern drummer. I mean, I'm a contributing writer, but it's like maybe 1 or 2 a year
Yeah.
articles because there's so many of us, But it's an honor to do it because I grew up reading that magazine and
Oh, for
I've
sure.
written, and I've written like an educational piece in it. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know what I'm doing half the time anyway.
That's funny. So I like it's the same thing with me with like I've been watching and reading Premier Guitar for since I was a kid, since I first started playing.
Right.
And like the pinnacle of guitardom is being featured on one of their rig rundowns
Oh
that
yeah.
they do on YouTube. So I imagine it's the same kind of thing for you. So I bet that's really cool.
It is cool. It's flattering, when you get to do something for a magazine. Like, oh wow, I love this magazine, and this guy that I've read his articles is emailing me. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So now let's get into the fun stuff. Tell me about the strangest gig you've ever played. And by strange, I don't necessarily mean like, bad or terrible, but you play those gigs where like you look up and you're thinking, how did I get here? What turn of events led me to this place in front of, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, it's funny. When you asked me to do this, I was like, gosh, I've got. I know we have a limited time, and I'm not going to run over by any means. And I was actually talking to my wife about it today. I was like, she's like, oh, remember that time that this happened? I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh yeah.
It's just honestly I think it's because I'm old and I've played so many gigs. There's a lot, but I'll narrow it down to a couple. So there's one in particular that anybody asks me like what's the weirdest thing that's happened at a gig or what's the weirdest gig
Yeah.
you played. This one always is pretty much at the top. I was playing in Dublin in Ireland, and I was with Sarah Jaffe, and we were on about a 3 or 4 week tour supporting Midlake, and we had just been playing all over. I don't even know where we were, Norway and Brussels and Belgium. It was
Yeah.
crazy, super fun,
Yeah.
and we get to Dublin. I'm like, awesome. I've never been to Ireland before. This is gonna be great. I'm like half Irish, so I'm like, this is gonna be amazing. So we get on stage, and I'm not sure if all the audience may know or not, or if you know, Chris, but I mean, Midlake is like, they couldn't sell out the Kessler here.
Yeah.
They're massive over there.
That's crazy.
And, oh, it's really crazy. Like, we ended the tour at Shepherd's Bush Empire in London.
Oh, wow.
And it was sold out. And like,
Crazy.
that's 3,500 people.
Yeah.
And like, people like Ed O'Brien from Radiohead were on a guest list. I'm not kidding.
Oh, fun.
I mean, like that, and I'm like, but you guys can't even play the Kessler. It's just this weird across the ocean thing that they've had because of the label they're on. Anyway, so playing the Dublin gig, and I mean, I love that tour was so fun because we, over in Europe, you play at like 8. It's so early. By 8:30, I was done every night, which is dangerous as well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but we were playing, and we're like halfway through the gig, and it was sold out at this place called Vicar Street, right in the heart of Dublin, and it was like a Sunday night. It was Valentine's night in Dublin, on at this big venue. I think it was sold out. So I think I remember them telling me the tour manager was like, I think it was 1,400 there that night. So. Yeah. We're playing, and it's a huge crowd, and we made a bunch of friends, and stuff, so, in pubs and stuff the day before, and so they all came. It was like a big party,
Yeah.
Playing along, and I'm like, why is there a dog in the audience? And, like, these guys are walking around with these dogs, and I'm like,
okay.
This is strange. And so I'm playing the gig, do our set, and we run back upstairs, and I run back, and the stage manager, not with the tour manager, but the stage manager of the venue, ran up to me, like, you okay? And I'm like, I'm great. I'm just going to go get a drink. And I thought it was a pretty good show.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, are you all right? And I'm like, I'm fine. What's up? And he goes, oh, we had a bomb threat.
Oh, no. And they didn't think to tell the band?
No, they just like, oh, just keep going. Well, they didn't want it. What they didn't want to alarm. I guess they would have a stampede. You know? That's where the sniffing dogs.
Yeah, a bunch of bomb sniffing dogs. They didn't think it would give it away.
But what was crazy is that the audience is just used to it.
Oh wow! In Dublin,
right.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, and then I put 2 and 2 together and came up with, normally I come up with 22, but this time I come up with 4, and I was like, oh, I get it. Valentine's night, probably the biggest assembly of people in Dublin. Someone's going to call in and be a jerk.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It was freaky, dude. I didn't really hit me until like the next morning. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's crazy that they didn't like shut everything down. They just kept it going.
They just kept going. They're like, we got to make money on this gig, I guess.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? A bomb goes off, right?
Right. It won't be that bad. We're used to. It was really weird.
Well, it's probably good that you found out after the set and not before.
You're totally right, because what's funny is when I was doing it, I was like, I don't think that's weird. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to forget about it. And I just kept playing. And yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Like, it would have freaked me the you-know-what out.
So did the Midlake guys, did they have to go on knowing there was a bomb threat call?
Yeah, totally. But by that time, they delayed their set a little bit.
Okay.
And we kind of calmed everything down, and we're like, okay. Everything's kind of back to normal.
God, talk about coming out with some adrenaline, man.
Well, the other, this isn't really a part of the show, but this is a really weird thing, a terrible thing that happened on that tour. So we were going, I think this was the 2 days before we were traveling, I think from Norway to somewhere. We just drove all night long in this big bus thing, so I don't know where we were. I just know that it was very cold. By the time we got on a ferry to go to Dublin, it warmed up. Obviously, from Norway to there, it was still winter, but it wasn't as cold as it was in Norway.
Yeah.
And our toilet had frozen. The toilet had frozen in Norway,
Oh
so
my
they were
gosh.
like, oh, "Okay, you can do that, but just do one of them."
Yeah, just no number twos.
So then we're doing those things, and when we get on the ferry and we get on the back on the bus to drive to Dublin, drive to the hotel in Dublin, we're like unpacking the bags, and we're like, "Man, what is up?" Yeah, the toilet had thawed and
Oh
had
no.
leaked all over my bag in
Oh
particular.
no.
So my bag reeked of urine.
Fun. Yeah.
Sarah, Sarah made me put it in the hall. Like I couldn't even I couldn't even put it in my room.
Just get that shit out of here.
Oh man, it was not good, bro. It was like it's.
Oh,
Luckily, for some reason my clothes didn't get ruined because it just kind of hit the top of it. But
you throw that
yeah,
bag away as soon as you get home, I guess.
yeah, at Mid Lake they bought me a new one. That was
Oh, that's sweet.
thank yeah. So that's definitely those 3 days on that run. That was definitely one of the weirdest moments.
Yeah, man, that's bizarre.
I mean, I'm not sure how many you want, but I mean, I've got one or two more.
Yeah, give me one more.
So this was I mean, there's a funny story about Pleasant Grove. We, we this was back when C&J was like a thing,
Yeah.
Like we would drive all the way to New York, and sorry about the train, by the way,
Oh,
and go like maybe do one gig in between, and drive all the way to New York and play one show, and we drive all the way home.
oh wow.
I mean, we were in our late 20s, or we
Yeah.
were like no kids. We're like, let's just go play
Just do it.
C&J,
Yeah.
hang out in New York for a few days. Well, we wouldn't play. And they make like Southwest West. They make everything like they make every venue a musical venue, right?
Yeah.
They make in Austin. They make taco stands.
Right. Yeah. I think I played a hotel lobby one time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we played this comedy club in New York. It was near the Bowery, and I remember like this is kind of weird, And the club manager, or whatever, was like, okay, so you guys got to stay in this room because Joan Rivers is playing before you.
Okay.
I'm like, why is she here? And I'm like, oh, right, it's a comedy club.
Yeah, the comedy. Yeah.
Before the C&J thing even started, Joan Rivers, like we can say, like Joan Rivers opened up for us.
Yeah. What a bizarre bill.
we're walking down to the stage, and there she is coming up the stairs. We walk right next to her, and she has no idea what's going on. Like she's a star, in this fan, or stardom mode. And she just looks at us and like we're walking down the stairs, and she's walking up, and she like pats us all on the shoulders as she's walking by us. Thanks for coming, loves. Thanks for coming. And I'm like, I gotta be here, man. I'm doing this gig.
I'm not here for you, Joan Rivers.
But it was super sweet to meet her though. I did say hi and talk to her for a second. She was super sweet, but it was so funny. She was like, "Thanks for coming."
With that smoker voice.
Totally. She was a trip, and little bitty. I mean, I'm I'm not the tallest guy on the planet, but she was pretty small compared to me.
Pretty
so
tiny.
those are two seriously weird ones. The time Pleasant Grove played at the Bowery Ballroom, and the only people in the audience we opened up for Low were Evan Dando and Ben Queller.
Yeah.
They were the only people watching us.
Oh, wow.
Like, where's the crowd? And why is it those two?
Yeah. Because they weren't playing that night or anything?
No.
Just there.
Yeah, well, Joe Butcher, our pedal steel guitarist at the time, was in Radish for a while.
Okay, yeah.
So and I guess Ben and Evan were friends. I don't know. I was like, and they were stoned out of their mind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, anywho,
Should have called him up on stage, had a jam session.
That in hindsight, like that's what we should have done. It would have brought people in.
Yeah.
Know? It was fun, but yeah, many experiences like that. I mean, we could go on, but those are 2 or 3 of them.
Those are great. I love it. So something else I like to ask all the guests, I think it's an interesting insight, is tell me now about your dream gig. If you could get a call, like if somebody called you up tomorrow and was like, "Hey, come play drums for me," what would your dream gig be?
Honestly, this might surprise you. It might not. Not sure how much you know about my musical past because, I'm a total 80s, like, new waver, really before anything. And still, like, I listen to, New Order and, U2 and the Smiths and everything, Depeche Mode. I mean, all the time. Still, I mean, I think being a motorcade, you kind of got to have to.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
So my dream gig, honestly, if I got a call from The Cure, I would. Yeah. Because not really to play on anything new.
Just to go play a date.
Just go play a date and to play like the Disintegration album or to play the Pornography album or to play something of early to mid 80s or late 80s. That would be like a dream gig for me because, I studied.
Oh, yeah. You know all the parts. Yeah.
I knew all the parts, all of them, and still do, that drummer at the time from the Head on the Door to past Disintegration, I don't remember what it was, Wish, I think. His name was Boris Williams, and he was probably one of my biggest inspirations because he was such a melodic drummer. And what I mean, he had like, you know what I mean? Like he had like melodic
For sure.
parts that went with all the melodies. And I'm like, he's not just playing drums. Like his drum part, like you'd kind of miss it.
Yeah, if it went away, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just the 4 on the floor meat and potatoes stuff. Like this is like something pretty intricate that's like melodic, and that always like totally impressed me and inspired me. Really,
Cool, man. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. I love having these conversations. They're so much fun getting to hear the stories.
Oh man, thank you so much for inviting me. I've been wanting to I've been thinking about this really, since we first started to do it.
Thanks again to my good friend Jeff Ryan for stopping by. If you want to know more about him, please check out his band Motorcade. Phenomenal band out of Dallas. They're doing some really great stuff. You can also check out his drumming with my fellow label mate Jackson Scribner. Tune in next time to another episode of The Strangest Gig, where we will hear more stories of the strange, weird, wild, wacky, terrible, and or amazing gigs that we have to take to make it as freelance and gigging musicians. Till next time.